The emergency alert came through at 0400 hours, pulling Captain Tae-won from a restless sleep. His quarters aboard the Earth Defense Vessel Times. Indomitable Times were dark and cold, the way he liked them. The red warning lights painted everything in shades of blood. "Captain, to the bridge," the voice crackled through the comm system. It was Hana, his first officer. She never panicked, but he could hear the tension in her voice. Tae-won pulled on his uniform and ran his hand across the burn scars on his face. 10 years since the Mars Rebellion, and they still ached when he was tired. He made it to the bridge in 90 seconds. "Report," he said, dropping into the command chair. Hana pulled up a holographic display. "Priority distress call from the Valari Empire. Multiple systems under attack. They're requesting immediate assistance from all coalition forces." Tae-won studied the data streaming across the screens. The Valari were peaceful beings, crystalline life forms that had never known war. Their empire stretched across 23 star systems, all of them dedicated to art, science, and philosophy. Now, system after system was going dark. "What's attacking them?" he asked. "Something called the Rixon Swarm," Hana said. "Ancient machines. They were dormant for thousands of years, but somehow they woke up. 8 Valari worlds are already gone, completely consumed." The tactical display showed red markers spreading across Valari space like a disease. Tae-won had seen war before. He'd fought in 3 campaigns and lost half his friends to violence. But this was different. This was extinction. "What's the coalition's response?" he asked. Hana's expression darkened. "They're debating it. The council has been in session for 6 hours. No decision yet." 6 hours, Tae-won repeated quietly. "How long until the Valari capital falls?" "Intelligence estimates 3 days, maybe 4. Tae-won stood and walked to the forward viewport. Beyond the glass, stars stretched out in every direction. Somewhere out there, billions of innocent beings were dying while politicians argued about protocols and procedures. "Captain?" Hana stepped beside him. "What are you thinking?" "I'm thinking the coalition is going to let them die," he said. "Too many species are afraid of getting involved. Too many old grudges and political games. And what are we going to do about it?" Tae-won turned to face his crew. There were 12 officers on the bridge, all of them watching him. Good people. Brave people. They'd followed him through hell before. "Send a message to every human ship in this sector," he said. "Tell them the Valari need help. Tell them we're going, and we're looking for volunteers." Hana smiled. It was a fierce expression, full of teeth. "Aye, Captain." Within 2 hours, 5 other ships had responded. The Times, Defiant Asterisk, Asterisk, Resilient Asterisk, Asterisk, Tenacious Asterisk, Asterisk, Unbreakable Asterisk, and Times Phoenix Asterisk. All of them were military vessels. All of them were crewed by humans who understood what it meant to fight for something bigger than yourself. Tae-won gathered his senior staff in the briefing room. Bo-ra, his chief engineer, was already there, her hands covered in grease from working on the engines. Sang-woo, the Marine commander, sat cleaning his rifle with practiced movements. Yuna, the medical officer, was reviewing casualty projections on her tablet. "We're outgunned," Sang-woo said without preamble. 6 ships against a force that's destroyed 8 worlds? "When have we ever had good odds?" Bo-ra asked, grinning. "I can squeeze 15% more power from the engines. That'll help." "We're not going there to win a war," Tae-won said. "We're going to buy time, save who we can. Show the Valari they're not alone." "The coalition will be furious," Hana pointed out. "This is unauthorized military action. We could all face court-martial." Tae-won met her eyes. "I know. Anyone who wants to back out, do it now. No shame, no judgment. Nobody moved. They'd all made their choice before entering the room. "Then let's talk strategy," Tae-won said. They spent the next 4 hours planning. The Valari had sent detailed intelligence about the Rixen swarm. The machines were adaptive, learning from every engagement. Traditional military tactics failed because the Rixen could predict and counter them within hours. Their algorithms, Hana explained. They calculate probabilities, run simulations, optimize their responses. Every coalition fleet that's engaged them has used textbook formations and strategies. The machines eat that up. So we don't use textbooks, Sangwoo said. We improvise. Keep them guessing. Exactly. Taewon agreed. Humans are good at chaos. We grew up on a planet that tried to kill us every day. We learned to adapt, to think on our feet, to survive when everything says we shouldn't. Yuna looked up from her tablet. The Valari physiology is completely different from ours. If we're treating wounded, I'll need to learn their biology, fast. I'm setting up xenomedical protocols now. Do what you can, Taewon said. But remember, our primary mission is evacuation and delay. We hold the line long enough for reinforcements to arrive. What if reinforcements don't come? Bo-Ra asked quietly. The room fell silent. It was the question nobody wanted to voice. Then we hold the line anyway, Taewon said. Because that's what we do. The fleet jumped to hyperspace 6 hours later. The journey would take 3 days. 3 days, while the Valari died. 3 days while the coalition debated. Taewon spent most of the trip on the bridge, watching sensor data and reading reports about the Rixen. The machines had been imprisoned by the Valari's ancestors 10,000 years ago. Something had released them, and now they were harvesting everything biological they encountered. Organic matter was fuel for their expansion. On the second day, they received a transmission from the coalition. Ambassador Dong Hyun appeared on screen, his face stern. Captain Taewon, you are ordered to abort your mission and return to Earth immediately. Your actions are unauthorized and potentially catastrophic for coalition relations. Taewon kept his expression neutral. With respect, Ambassador, I don't take orders from diplomats. My oath is to protect the innocent. That's what I'm doing. You're risking an interstellar incident. I'm preventing a genocide, Taewon replied. If the coalition has a problem with that, they can file a complaint after the Valari are safe. He cut the transmission before Dong Hyun could respond. That's going to cost you, Hannah said. I know, Taewon said. But I can live with being court-martialed. I can't live with doing nothing. On the third day, they dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of Valari space. The sensors immediately lit up with warnings. Ahead of them, Valari Prime burned. The planet that had once been a crystal paradise was half covered in black machinery. Rixen drones swarmed across the surface like ants, harvesting everything organic. Orbital stations were shattered ruins. Refugee ships scattered in every direction, pursued by sleek killing machines. My God, Yuna whispered. Taewon gripped the armrests of his chair. This was worse than the intelligence reports. This was apocalypse. All ships, battle stations, he ordered. We're going in. The human fleet accelerated toward the dying world. 6 small ships against an ocean of machines. Behind them, the rest of the galaxy watched and waited. Ahead of them, millions of innocent beings prayed for salvation. Captain Taewon had no illusions about what was coming. Many of his people would die here, maybe all of them, but humanity had learned something during its violent evolution on Earth. Some things were worth dying for. Today, they would teach the galaxy what that meant. The times, indomitable times, shook violently as Rixen fire hammered against its shields. Red warning lights flashed across every console on the bridge. The ship groaned like a wounded animal. Shield strength at 40%, Hana called out. We can't take much more of this. Taewon watched the tactical display. Hundreds of Rixen drones surrounded them, their formations perfect and deadly. Behind them, the other 5 human ships fought their own battles. The Times Phoenix Times was already trailing atmosphere from a hull breach. "We can't win a ship battle," Taewon said. "They're too many, and they adapt too fast. We need a new approach." "What did you have in mind?" Hana asked, though her tone suggested she already knew the answer. Taewon pulled up a three-dimensional map of Valari Prime. The capital city, Ashatel, glowed on the surface. Intelligence showed 300,000 civilians sheltering in underground caverns beneath the city. The Rixen were drilling down to reach them. "We do an atmospheric drop," he said. "Put Marines directly on the surface. Fight them on the ground where our people have the advantage." The bridge went silent. Everyone stared at him. "That's insane," Bora said from the engineering station. "The atmospheric friction alone will tear the ship apart. We're not designed for that kind of stress." "The ship doesn't have to survive," Taewon said. "Just get us close enough to deploy drop pods." Hana ran the calculations quickly. Her fingers flew across her console. 83% chance of catastrophic hull failure. And even if we make it, we'll be stranded on the surface, with no way back up. "Then we better make it count," Taewon said. He opened a ship-wide channel. "All hands, this is the captain. We're going into the atmosphere. Secure everything. Marines, get to your drop pods. This is going to be rough." In the Marine Bay, Sang-woo gathered his troops. 200 soldiers stood in neat rows, their powered armor gleaming under the harsh lights. He'd trained these men and women personally. He knew their strengths, their fears, their families back home. "You heard the captain," he said. "We're dropping straight into hell. The Rixen are machines, but they bleed just like anything else. Our job is to secure the civilian shelters and hold the line, no matter what." One young Marine raised his hand. His name was Kiwoo, fresh out of training. "Commander, what are our chances?" Sang-woo grinned. "About the same as always. We'll probably die, but we'll take plenty of them with us." He paused. "Anyone who wants to back out? Speak now." Nobody moved. Kiwoo straightened his shoulders and checked his rifle. "Good," Sang-woo said. "Then let's show these machines what humans can do." The Times. Indomitable Times tilted downward, aiming straight at the planet's surface. The other 5 human ships formed a protective screen, drawing fire away from them. The Times' Defiant Times took a direct hit to its reactor and exploded in a brilliant flash. 50 humans died in an instant. Taewon gripped his chair as the ship entered the atmosphere. The hull began to scream, metal shrieking as temperatures soared. Panels tore away. Flames licked at the viewports. "Hull integrity at 60%, Bora shouted over the noise. 50%, 40. "We're losing structural cohesion. Keep us together," Taewon ordered. "Just a little longer." The planet's surface rushed up to meet them. Cities burned below. Black swarms of Rixen drones covered everything like locusts. The Times. Indomitable Times was a meteor, trailing fire and debris. "Drop altitude reached," Hana announced. "Deploying Marines now." 200 drop pods launched from the ship's belly. Each one contained a single Marine in full combat armor. They fell like rain. Small, heat-shielded capsules that could survive re-entry on Earth. On this gentler world, they were perfect. The pods slammed into the ground in the middle of a Rixen swarm. The impact craters smoked. Then, the pods opened. Sang-woo was first out, his rifle already firing. The Rixen were sleek, silver machines, each one the size of a large dog. They moved with insect-like precision, their cutting tools designed for harvesting organic matter. Those same tools could tear through armor. "Form a perimeter," Sang-woo roared. "Light them up." The Marines opened fire with weapons that would have been too heavy for any other species. Explosive rounds tore through Rixen shells. Plasma cutters melted their processing cores. The humans moved with organized chaos, each squad covering the others. The Rixen adapted quickly. Within minutes, they changed their formations, their armor configurations. They learned from every human tactic. But humans didn't rely on tactics. They relied on aggression and improvisation. Kiwoo threw a grenade into a cluster of drones, then shot the grenade mid-air. The explosion took out a dozen machines. Another Marine used her armor's strength to rip a drone in half and throw the pieces at its companions. "Push forward," Sang-woo ordered. "We need to reach the civilian shelters." They fought through streets filled with broken crystal and burning vegetation. The Valari had built their city from organic materials. Everything grown rather than constructed. Now it all burned. The smoke made it hard to see, but the Marines' armor had thermal imaging. The entrance to the underground shelters was a massive hole in the ground, partially sealed by Rixon drilling equipment. Hundreds of drones guarded it. "Bo-Ra, we need that entrance cleared," Sang-woo said into his comm. Back on the Time's indomitable asterisk, Bo-Ra studied the schematics. The ship had managed to land, crashed, really on the edge of the city. She was in the engine room, surrounded by sparking consoles and broken equipment. "I can rig an EMP device," she said, "but I'll need to get close." "How close?" Taewon asked. "Suicide range," she admitted. "The pulse will fry everything electronic within 50 meters, including the marine armor." Taewon was silent for a moment. Then, "Do it. But give the Marines warning to evacuate first." Bo-Ra grabbed her tools and ran. She was an engineer, not a soldier, but she'd grown up on Earth. She knew how to fight when necessary. She reached Sang-woo's position 10 minutes later, carrying a device cobbled together from spare parts. "Everyone back," Sang-woo ordered. "Clear the area. EMP incoming." The Marines retreated, but the Rixon didn't. They couldn't understand the concept of a trap. Bo-Ra activated the device and threw it into the middle of the drone swarm. The electromagnetic pulse was invisible, but its effects were immediate. Every Rixon, within 50 meters, simply stopped. Their lights went dark. They collapsed like puppets with cut strings. The entrance was clear. Sang-woo led his Marines down into the darkness. Emergency lights flickered along the walls. At the bottom, they found the Valari, the crystalline beings huddled together in the cavern, their bodies reflecting the dim light in rainbow patterns. There were thousands of them, men, women, children. They made sounds like wind chimes, their language incomprehensible without translators. One Valari stepped forward. His name was Kelthin, the ambassador who had pleaded for help. He looked at the human soldiers with something like awe. "You came," he said through the translator. "We called, and you came. We're here to protect you," Sang-woo said. He was right. Above ground, more drones were arriving. Thousands of them, drawn by the electromagnetic signature. They began drilling again, this time in multiple locations. Yuna arrived with medical supplies, having made her way from the Time's indomitable asterisk. She immediately began treating wounded Marines and Valari alike. The crystalline beings were delicate, their bodies cracking under stress. She worked carefully, adapting human techniques to alien biology. "We can't hold here forever," Hana reported from the ship. "The Rixon are bringing in heavy equipment. They'll break through within hours." Taewon studied the tactical situation. They were surrounded, outnumbered, and running out of ammunition. The other human ships were fighting their own battles across the city. They were alone. "Sang-woo," he said quietly, "I need volunteers for a special mission. The Rixon hive structure is 3 kilometers from your position. If we take it out, the local drones will lose coordination. But it's a one-way trip." Sang-woo looked at his Marines. They were exhausted, bleeding, low on ammunition. He opened his mouth to explain the mission. "I'll go," Kiwoo said immediately. 39 other Marines stepped forward, without hesitation. "We don't leave anyone behind," Sang-woo said. "We're not being left behind," Kiwoo replied. "We're buying time for everyone else." Sang-woo felt something break inside his chest. "Then I'm going with you," he said. The 41 Marines loaded up with explosives and EMP charges. They moved through the burning city like ghosts, avoiding major drone concentrations. The hive structure was a massive tower of black metal, pulsing with energy. "Plant charges at the base," Sang-Woo ordered. "Set for proximity detonation. When the Rixen swarm us, we blow it all." They worked quickly, but the Rixen noticed them. Hundreds of drones began converging on their position. The Marines formed a defensive circle around the hive structure. "This is it," Sang-Woo said. "It's been an honor serving with you all." Ki-Woo laughed, though his voice shook. "See you on the other side, Commander." The Rixen attacked in waves. The Marines fired until their weapons ran dry, then fought with knives and bare hands. One by one, they fell. But they never retreated. When the last charge was planted, Sang-Woo triggered them all. The explosion lit up the sky. The hive structure collapsed, sending electromagnetic shockwaves across the city. Every Rixen drone within 5 kilometers shut down simultaneously. 12 Marines survived the blast, including Sang-Woo and Ki-Woo. Both were badly injured, their armor shattered. But they'd done it. In the shelter below, the Valari felt the explosion. They watched as the humans sacrificed themselves for beings they'd only just met. Some of them wept, their tears crystalline and beautiful. Kelthin turned to Yuna, who was still treating the wounded. Yuna looked up, her hands covered in both human and Valari blood. "Because that's what humans do. And where there wa," she said simply. "We protect those who can't protect themselves. Even if it costs us everything." The sun rose over Valari Prime, painting the devastated city in shades of gold and red. Smoke still rose from the ruins. Bodies, both human and machine, littered the streets. The battle was over, but victory felt hollow. Taewon walked through the wreckage, counting the cost. 67 Marines dead. The Times, Indomitable Times, was barely functional, held together by emergency repairs. The Times, Defiant Times, was gone completely. 2 other ships were so damaged they could barely maintain orbit. He found Sang-Woo in the medical tent that Yuna had set up. The Marine commander's left arm was in a regeneration sleeve, and burns covered half his face. But he was alive. 12 survivors out of 41, Sang-Woo said quietly. "I lost 29 good people. You saved 300,000 Valari," Taewon replied. "They know that. They're grateful. Gratitude doesn't bring back the dead." Taewon sat down beside him. "No. But it gives their sacrifice meaning. That's all any soldier can hope for." Outside the tent, the Valari were emerging from their shelters. They moved through the human camp with hesitant steps, their crystalline bodies reflecting the morning light. Many of them stopped to look at the wounded Marines, at the graves being dug, at the price paid for their survival. Kelthin approached Taewon with careful, deliberate movements. The Valari ambassador seemed changed somehow. War had marked him just as surely as it had marked the humans. "Captain," he said through his translator, "I need to speak with you. It's urgent." They walked to what remained of the Times' Indomitable Asterisk's bridge. Hana was there, along with Bora, who was covered in grease and exhaustion. The engineer had been working for 31 hours straight, keeping the ship's systems online. "What is it?" Taewon asked. Kelthin activated a holographic display. It showed the Valari Empire. All 23 systems. More than half were marked in red, consumed by the Rixen. The remaining systems were under siege. "We saved Valari Prime," Kelthin said. "But the war is far from over. The Rixen are still advancing. At their current rate, the entire empire will fall within 2 weeks. What about coalition reinforcements?" Hana asked. "Surely they're responding now." "They are," Kelthin said bitterly. "But too slowly. The Council still debates protocols and procedures. They estimate their fleet will arrive in 3 weeks. We'll be extinct by then." Taewon studied the map. The Rixen weren't just consuming randomly. They were moving in a specific direction, working toward something. "What's here?" he asked, pointing to the center of Valari space. Kelthin's crystalline body seemed to dim. The core star. It's the heart of our empire. Our homeworld, Velarin, orbits it. 12 billion of our people live there. But that's not all, is it? Hana said, reading something in the Valari's posture. There's something else. Kelthin was silent for a long moment. Finally, he spoke. 10,000 years ago, our ancestors encountered the Rixen. They barely survived. The machines were relentless. Our people managed to trap them in a quantum stasis field, powered by the core star's energy. We thought they would sleep forever. But something woke them up, Bora said. Yes, a solar flare from the core star disrupted the outer edge of the stasis field 6 months ago. A small portion of the Rixen fleet escaped. These are just the advance forces. Kelthin's voice was hollow. The main Rixen fleet, millions of ships, is still trapped in the stasis field. But if they reach the core star and drain its energy, they'll be free. The bridge went silent. Everyone understood the implications. How many ships are in the main fleet? Taewon asked. Enough to consume the entire galaxy, Kelthin whispered. Every world, every species, everything. Hana's fingers flew across her console, running calculations. If they reach the core star in 2 weeks, and we can't stop them conventionally, we'd have to destroy the star itself. That would obliterate the entire system, Bora said. Including Velarin. 12 billion people. Kelthin made a sound like breaking glass. It might have been a sob. My entire family is on Velarin. My mate. My children. Everyone I've ever loved. A message came through on the communication system. Ambassador Dong Hyun appeared on screen. The human diplomat looked haggard, as if he'd aged years in the past few days. Captain Taewon, he said. I'm at the Coalition Emergency Council meeting. They've finally made a decision. He paused. They're authorizing military intervention, but it's too little, too late. By the time the fleet arrives, the Rixen will have reached the core star. What do they recommend? Taewon asked, though he already knew the answer. Dong Hyun's expression was tortured. They recommend destroying the core star before the Rixen reach it. It's the only way to prevent galactic extinction. They want us to commit genocide, Sangwoo said flatly. He'd entered the bridge, leaning heavily on a crutch. They want us to murder 12 billion innocent people. Not want, Dong Hyun corrected. Need. The mathematics are clear. 12 billion against trillions across the galaxy. It's a terrible choice, but it's the only logical one. Taewon felt sick. He'd made hard decisions before, but nothing like this. This wasn't combat. This was execution. There has to be another way, Yuna said. She'd joined them, her medical coat still stained with blood. We can evacuate them. Get them off-world before we destroy the star. Dong Hyun shook his head. I've run the numbers. Even if we mobilized every ship in the sector, we couldn't evacuate more than half the population before the Rixen arrive. And that's being optimistic. Then we evacuate half, Yuna insisted. We save who we can. And let 6 billion die instead of 12 billion? Dong Hyun asked. The argument continued, voices rising. Taewon sat in his command chair, thinking. The weight of billions of lives pressed down on him. How did you make a choice like this? How did you choose who lived and who died? Finally, he stood. Enough, he said quietly. But everyone stopped talking. Here's what we're going to do. We evacuate as many Valari as possible from Velarin. We work around the clock. Every available ship. Bora, I need you to convert cargo haulers into evacuation vessels. Yuna, set up triage protocols. Prioritize those who can survive transport. Hana, coordinate with every coalition ship in range. I don't care about protocols or jurisdiction. We need ships, and we need them now. And when the Rixen arrive? Dong Hyun asked. Taewon's voice was ice. Then I personally deliver the payload to destroy the core star. I'll take the times. Indomitable times on a one-way trip into that sun. And make sure the job gets done. Captain Hannah started. That's my decision, Taewon said. We save who we can, and we do what we must. That's the only way we live with ourselves afterward. The evacuation began within hours. Every ship in the sector converged on Velarin. Human vessels, Valari transport ships, coalition cargo haulers, anything that could carry passengers. Bo-Ra and her engineering teams performed miracles, modifying ships to carry twice their rated capacity. Taewon worked from the bridge of the Time's indomitable asterisk, coordinating the massive effort. Hana managed the logistics, routing ships, and organizing landing zones. Dong-hyun used his diplomatic skills to cut through bureaucratic red tape, securing emergency asylum for refugees in dozens of systems. On Velarin itself, panic was spreading. 12 billion people trying to escape on ships that could only carry a fraction of them. Riots broke out. Some Valari refused to leave their homes, unable to accept the reality of what was coming. Kiwoo, recovered enough to walk, led marine units on the surface. Their job was to maintain order and ensure the evacuation proceeded smoothly. It was heartbreaking work, deciding who got on the ships and who had to wait. Please, a Valari mother begged, holding her child. Please. Let us on the next transport. Kiwoo checked his list. You're scheduled for transport 7. That's 3 hours from now. We don't have 3 hours, she cried. The Rixen could be here any moment. Kiwoo wanted to help, but the ships were already overloaded. If they took on more passengers, they risked structural failure. I'm sorry, he said. I truly am. The mother's crystalline body dimmed with despair. Kiwoo would remember that moment for the rest of his life. The hours turned into days. The evacuation continued at a frantic pace. 7 billion Valari were saved, then 8 billion, then 9. But the Rixen were getting closer. Their swarm had consumed the outer systems and was now approaching Velarin itself. Time was running out. On the 4th day, Taewon made the call. All ships. Evacuate immediately. The window is closing. We haven't finished, Yuna protested. There are still 5 billion people down there. And if we wait any longer, we'll lose everyone, Taewon said. Including the refugees already aboard the transports. We have to go. Now. The evacuation fleet jumped to hyperspace, leaving Velarin behind. On the planet's surface, 5 billion Valari looked up at the sky, watching their last hope disappear. Kelthin stood on the bridge of the Time's indomitable asterisk, his body fracturing with grief. My family is still down there, he said. My children. I know, Taewon said. I'm sorry. He loaded antimatter warheads into the Time's indomitable asterisk's cargo bay. Enough explosive force to trigger a stellar collapse. Enough to turn the core star into a black hole that would consume everything in the system. I'll need volunteers, he said to his crew. This is a one-way mission. Anyone who comes with me isn't coming back. Nobody left. They'd followed him this far. They'd follow him to the end. The Times, indomitable Times, hung in space, alone and scarred. Behind them, the evacuation fleet had jumped to safety, carrying 9 billion Valari refugees to new homes across the galaxy. Ahead, the core star burned bright and yellow, beautiful and deadly. Velarin was visible in orbit, a blue and green world that reminded Taewon of Earth. 5 billion people lived down there, going about their lives, not knowing they had hours left. Many had refused to believe the evacuation warnings. Others simply had nowhere to go. Final systems check, Taewon said, his voice calm despite everything. Bo-Ra ran through her diagnostics. Engines at 70%. That's the best I can do with the damage we've taken. Shields are functional, but won't last long under star corona radiation. Life support is good for another 12 hours. We won't need 12 hours, Taewon said quietly. Hana completed her navigation calculations. Course plotted. We'll approach from the polar axis to avoid the Rixen fleet's main concentration. Once we're inside the star's gravity well, There's no turning back. Sangwoo stood at the tactical station, even though there was nothing to fight. His wounds were still healing, but he'd insisted on being here. Sir, the Rixen have detected us. They're moving to intercept. The tactical display showed hundreds of enemy contacts converging on their position. The machines knew what the times, indomitable times, carried. They would do anything to stop it. How long until they reach us? Taewon asked. 20 minutes, Sangwoo replied. And how long until we reach the star's corona? 18 minutes, Taewon smiled grimly. Then we need to buy ourselves 2 extra minutes. A communication came through on an open channel. It was Jinho, the fighter pilot who'd helped them during the battle for Valari Prime. His squadron had followed the times, indomitable times, despite orders to evacuate. Captain, Jinho's voice crackled through the speakers. We're picking up your escort duty. Consider this payback for saving our lives back on Prime. Jinho. You're supposed to be with the evacuation fleet, Taewon said. I got lost, the pilot replied with forced cheerfulness. You know how bad I am with directions. Looks like I accidentally ended up here with my whole squadron. Crazy coincidence. Crazy. Taewon felt his throat tighten. I can't order you to do this. Good thing you're not ordering us then. We're volunteering. See you in the next life, Captain. 12 fighters broke formation and accelerated toward the incoming Rixen swarm. They were hopelessly outnumbered. But they didn't hesitate. The first fighter collided with a Rixen drone, both exploding in a brilliant flash. Then another. And another. Jinho's squadron bought them 3 minutes before the last fighter went silent. Time to run, Taewon said. Full thrust toward the star. Don't stop for anything. The times, indomitable times, accelerated. The Rixen followed. Their formations perfect and deadly. Energy weapons lanced through space, hammering against the ship's weakening shields. Yuna had volunteered to stay with the evacuation fleet, caring for the wounded refugees. Before she left, she and Taewon had stood together in the cargo bay, not speaking, just existing in the same space one last time. I'll tell them what you did here, she'd said finally. I'll make sure everyone knows. Tell them we did what we had to, Taewon replied. Nothing more. Now, as the ship raced toward its doom, he wondered if that was enough. Would history remember them as heroes or murderers? Did it matter? The core star grew larger in the viewport, filling their vision with fire. The outer corona was visible now, brilliant streamers of plasma reaching into space. The temperature inside the ship began to rise, despite the environmental systems. Shield strength at 40%, Bora reported. Hull temperature rising. We've got maybe 5 minutes before critical systems start failing. The Rixen were still firing. A direct hit pierced the shields and tore into the ship's hull. Atmosphere vented into space. Emergency bulkheads sealed automatically. But not before 3 crew members were sucked out into the void. Taewon forced himself to keep looking forward. Every death weighted him down. But he couldn't stop now. Too much depended on this mission's success. Entering the corona, Hana announced. The viewport dimmed automatically as they plunged into the star's outer layer. The temperature outside was 15 million degrees Celsius. The hull began to glow red, then white. Metal groaned and buckled. The Rixen, surprisingly, followed them in. Their machines were built to withstand extreme environments. They adapted their armor, plating, their cooling systems, their tactics. They were determined to stop the times, indomitable times, even if it meant their own destruction. They're not giving up, Sangwoo said, firing the ship's remaining weapons at the pursuing drones. They know what we're carrying. Bo-Ra's console exploded in sparks. She jerked back, her hands burned. Life support just failed in sections 3 through 7. Hull integrity at 30%. Captain, we're coming apart. Just get us to the core, Taewon said. That's all we need. The ship shook violently. A massive hull breach opened in the engineering section. Flames roared through the corridors, consuming everything. Half the crew died in seconds. Bo-Ra sealed what she could, routing power from dying systems to the engines. Ki-Woo and the surviving Marines held the bridge, protecting the command crew as they made their final approach. A Rixon drone had somehow breached the interior, its cutting tools deadly in the confined space. Ki-Woo tackled it, wrestling with the machine even as it sliced through his armor. "Go!" he shouted to the others. "Complete the mission." He triggered a grenade, destroying himself and the drone together. His sacrifice bought them seconds, but seconds mattered. The times. Indomitable times pushed deeper into the star. The outside temperature was now 50 million degrees. The viewport cracked. Atmosphere hissed out. The crew on the bridge started collapsing from heat exhaustion, their cooling systems overwhelmed. Sang-Woo fell first, his injuries making him more vulnerable. He died with his hand still on the tactical console, still trying to protect his captain. Bo-Ra lasted longer, her engineer's stubbornness keeping her functional even as her body shut down. "Core penetration in 30 seconds, she whispered. "You did it, Captain." Then she was gone too. Hana and Taewon were alone on the bridge. The rest of the ship was dark, dead, burned away by stellar fire. They could barely breathe. The heat was unbearable. "I'm glad it was you," Taewon said. "If I had to do this with anyone, I'm glad it was you." Hana smiled through her pain. "Been an honor, Captain. Don't miss the target." "I never do." They reached the star's core. The pressure was crushing. The ship's structural integrity was at zero. It should have already disintegrated. But somehow, it held together through will and luck and desperation. Taewon's vision was fading. His fingers found the detonation switch. "For Earth," he whispered. "For the Valari. For everyone who comes after us." He pressed the button. The antimatter warheads detonated at the heart of the core star. The explosion was beyond anything conventional. It disrupted the star's fusion processes, causing a cascade failure. The star collapsed in on itself, density increasing exponentially. A black hole formed in seconds, its gravity well irresistible. The Rixon swarm was pulled in, thousands of drones spiraling into oblivion. The quantum stasis field, powered by the star's energy, failed completely. The ancient Rixon fleet that had been imprisoned for 10,000 years lost power and died. Their systems failing without their power source. Velarin and its 5 billion inhabitants vanished into the black hole in moments, crushed into nothingness. The times, indomitable times followed, its hull finally breaking apart under the impossible forces. Taewon and Hana died together, their atoms scattered across space-time. The explosion was visible from 40 light-years away, a brilliant flash that marked the end of the Rixon threat and the sacrifice of everyone on that dying world. In the evacuation fleet, safe in hyperspace, 9 billion Valari refugees felt the moment through instruments and intuition. They knew the core star was gone. They knew their homeworld was destroyed. They knew they were alive because humans had chosen to die. Kelthin stood on the bridge of a transport ship, his crystalline body fractured with grief and gratitude. He thought of Taewon, the scarred captain who had saved his people. He thought of Jin-Ho and his pilots. He thought of all the humans who had given everything. "Remember them," he said to the Valari around him. "Remember what they did. Remember what they taught us." On one of the refugee ships, a young Valari child asked her mother. The mother, who had survived the evacuation, pulled her child close. "Because humans believe that all life is worth protecting. They learned that lesson on their terrible world, and they carried it to the stars. They are Deathworlders not because they love death, but because they understand its cost and choose to pay it so others don't have to." Space was quiet now. The battle was over. The war was won. The Rixon were extinct. Their threat ended forever. But the price had been paid in human blood and Valari tears. 5 billion souls lost on Velarin. Hundreds of human soldiers dead across multiple battles. Captain Taewon and his final crew burned away in stellar fire. The galaxy would remember this day. They would remember when aliens begged for aid and Deathworlders answered with valor. 1 year had passed since the core star collapsed. The black hole remained, a silent monument to sacrifice and survival. Coalition scientists studied it from a safe distance, mapping its effects on space-time. They named it Tae-1's Grave. The Galactic Coalition held a memorial service on the anniversary. Representatives from every member species attended. It was held in the Grand Assembly Hall, a massive structure on the neutral world of Sanctuary. The chamber could hold 10,000 beings, and every seat was filled. Ambassador Kelthan stood at the central podium. His crystalline body was still fractured from grief, but he'd learned to carry his pain with dignity. Behind him, a holographic display showed images of the fallen. Human faces, scarred and determined. Valari civilians, their crystalline forms beautiful and fragile. 1 year ago, Kelthan began. His voice translated into 1,000 languages. My people faced extinction. The Rixon swarm had consumed half our empire. Our colonies burned. Our fleets were destroyed. We had days, perhaps hours, left. The chamber was silent. Every being present knew this story. But they listened anyway. The coalition debated what to do. Meetings were called. Committees were formed. Protocols were reviewed. While we talked, billions died. Kelthan paused, letting the accusation hang in the air. We failed the Valari when they needed us most. Uncomfortable shifting rippled through the audience. Many species had voted against immediate intervention, citing regulations and risk assessments. They'd been right, by all logical standards. But logic meant nothing to the dead. But then humans came, Kelthan continued. Without authorization, without support, without hope of survival. They came because we called, and they answered because it was right. The holographic display changed, showing footage from the battle for Valari Prime. Marines in drop pods falling like meteors. Sang-Woo's suicide charge against the Hive. Jinho's fighters buying precious seconds with their lives. We called them Deathworlders, Kelthan said. We feared them. We thought them savage and aggressive. We were wrong. They are not monsters born from a harsh world. They are guardians, forged by necessity. They learned to fight because their planet demanded it. And they chose to protect us because their hearts demanded it. The display showed the time's indomitable asterisk's final moments, captured by deep space sensors. The ship diving into the star, pursued by Rixon drones. The brilliant flash of annihilation. Captain Tae-1 and his crew could have evacuated. They could have let someone else deliver the payload. But they knew the price of leadership. They knew that true valor is not asking others to die for a cause. It's being willing to die first. Kelthan's voice broke. My family was on Velarin. My mate. My children. I lost them when the star collapsed. But 9 billion of my people survived because humans were willing to pay the price I couldn't. He paused, collecting himself. We owe them a debt that can never be repaid, but we can honor their memory. We can learn from their example. We can become worthy of their sacrifice. The assembly stood as one, a gesture of respect that crossed species boundaries. For 5 full minutes, they stood in silence. When the ceremony ended, the real work began. Ambassador Dong Hyun, promoted to Coalition Security Advisor after his role in the evacuation, presented his findings to the Council. The investigation into the Rixon crisis had revealed institutional failures at every level. For 3 weeks before the attack, we received intelligence about unusual energy readings in Valari space, Dong Hyun explained. Multiple species reported sensor anomalies, but each report was filed separately, processed through different bureaucratic channels. Nobody connected them until it was too late. He pulled up damning evidence. Meetings where species voted against helping the Valari out of fear or prejudice. Reports that were buried because they were inconvenient. Resources that could have been mobilized but weren't. We let billions die because we couldn't agree on who had jurisdiction, Dong Hyun said flatly. That ends now. The reforms were sweeping. A new rapid response fleet was established, with authority to act without committee approval. Species-based voting was replaced with merit-based representation. And Earth, the backwater death world that everyone had ignored, was granted a permanent Security Council seat. But the most important change wasn't political. It was cultural. Throughout the galaxy, perspectives on humanity shifted. The term Deathworlder transformed from insult to honor. Universities began offering courses on human history and philosophy. Young beings from peaceful species volunteered for joint training with human military units, wanting to learn their methods. Yuna had become the director of xenomedical research, based on the Coalition capital world. Her office was always busy, training medical personnel from dozens of species. The techniques she'd developed during the Valari crisis, aggressive intervention, rapid triage, adaptation under pressure, were now standard across Coalition medicine. She stood before a class of 50 medical students, representing 20 different species. They watched her with respect bordering on reverence. Human medicine is different, she explained. On Earth, we learned that sometimes you have to hurt the patient to save them, break bones to set them correctly, cut away infected tissue, induce controlled trauma to prevent worse damage. She paused. Many species find this barbaric. They prefer gentle, gradual healing. But when time matters, when death is seconds away, gentle doesn't work. A student raised a tentacle. Dr. Yuna, is it true you once restarted a Valari's neural core using electrical shock? Yes, Yuna said. Her crystalline structure had stopped resonating. By all your textbooks, she was dead. But I remembered that Earth doctors used to shock hearts back into rhythm. I adapted the technique. She lived. But it could have shattered her body completely. Another student protested. It could have. Yuna agreed. But doing nothing would have guaranteed her death. When faced with certain death or possible survival, humans choose the risk every time. After class, a young Valari student approached her. His name was Telsin, and he'd been born on one of the refugee ships, conceived during the evacuation. He was part of the first generation of Valari who would never see their homeworld. My mother tells me you treated her during the evacuation, Telsin said. She says you saved her life, when others would have given up. Yuna smiled. I did what I was trained to do. Your mother was strong. She wanted to live. She also tells me about Captain Tae-1. About how he died to save us. Telsin's voice was quiet. Why would he do that? Why would any of them? Yuna considered the question. Because humans believe that protecting the innocent is worth any cost. We learned that on Earth, where nature tried to kill us every day. We survived by helping each other, by being willing to sacrifice for the group. That instinct never left us, even when we reached the stars. I want to be like that, Telsin said. I want to protect others, the way humans protected us. Then, study hard, Yuna told him. Learn everything you can, because the galaxy will always need people willing to stand between the innocent and the dark. Across the sector, Bo-Ra's legacy lived on in different ways. She'd revolutionized coalition engineering with her approach. Improvise, adapt, make things work with whatever you have. Her modifications to the evacuation ships had saved millions of lives. Engineering academies now taught Bo-Ra protocols, emergency repair techniques that prioritized function over form. Students learned to think creatively, to solve problems with limited resources, to keep equipment running past any reasonable breaking point. One of her former assistants, a mechanic named Jae-min, had started a company building ships designed with human engineering principles. They were ugly, inefficient by traditional standards, and absolutely unstoppable. When other ships failed, these kept flying. Bo-Ra taught me that elegance is nice, but survival is better, Jae-min told a reporter. She could repair a fusion reactor with spare parts and determination. She kept the times indomitable times flying when it should have been scrap. That's what I try to honor with every ship we build. The military changes were perhaps the most dramatic. Sang-woo had survived long enough to train the first integrated combat unit, combining humans with volunteers from other species. The Deathworld Guard became legendary. Their training was brutal by coalition standards. Physical conditioning that pushed every species to their limits. Tactics that emphasized aggression and unpredictability. A philosophy that valued mission success over individual survival. Commander Min Seo, Sang-woo's successor, led the Guard with fierce pride. She'd served under him during the Valari campaign and carried his lessons forward. Sang-woo taught us that courage isn't the absence of fear, she told new recruits. It's doing what needs to be done, despite the fear. He led 41 Marines on a suicide mission knowing most wouldn't survive. That's the standard we aspire to. 1. 1. 151. 1-5. The Guard's first deployment was to stop a pirate fleet threatening a colony world. They succeeded with 0 casualties among the civilians, though the Guard itself suffered heavy losses. When questioned about the cost, Min Seo simply said, "That's our job. Civilians live. We fight. That's the deal." Public opinion across the galaxy shifted. Humans were no longer seen as dangerous savages to be avoided. They were protectors, teachers, allies. Young beings from peaceful species looked at human soldiers with admiration instead of fear. But not everyone was happy with the changes. Some species resented humanity's growing influence. They formed political blocs to limit human expansion, citing concerns about aggressive tendencies and warmongering. At one council session, a delegate from a particularly pacifist species spoke out. Humans glorify violence. They teach our young to be aggressive. They're changing the peaceful character of the coalition. Dong Hyun, now Earth's senior ambassador, responded with controlled anger. You call us violent? Where were you when the Valari died? Where was your peaceful nature when billions needed help? You sat in safety and debated protocols while humans bled and died for strangers. That's exactly our point, the delegate argued. Violence begets violence. By fighting the Rixen, you've set a precedent. We set a precedent that genocide is unacceptable, Donghyun interrupted. We set a precedent that innocent lives matter more than political convenience. If that makes us violent, then I accept the label, proudly. The debate raged for hours, but ultimately, the majority sided with humanity. Too many species owed their survival to human intervention. Too many had seen what valor looked like when everything was at stake. 5 years after the Valari crisis, a memorial station was completed at Taewon's grave. It orbited the black hole at a safe distance, a place of remembrance and reflection. The structure was designed by Valari architects using human engineering principles, beautiful but functional. Elegant but indestructible. The dedication ceremony drew millions of visitors. Valari refugees came to honor the world they'd lost and the humans who'd saved them. Coalition representatives came to pay respects, and humans came to remember their dead. An elderly woman stood before the central monument. Her name was Taewon's mother, and she'd traveled from Earth to see where her son died. She was flanked by Valari who had made the same journey, bringing crystal flowers as traditional memorial offerings. The monument listed every name, every human who died in the campaign, every Valari lost on Valaran. Thousands upon thousands of names, carved in stone and crystal. A young Valari child, no more than 5 years old, tugged on Taewon's mother's sleeve. "Excuse me," the child said through a translator. "Are you related to Captain Taewon?" "I'm his mother," she replied. "Thank you," the child said simply. "My parents say I'm alive because of him." The old woman knelt down, tears streaming down her face. He would be happy to know that. He always wanted to make a difference. Later, during the ceremony, Kelthan spoke again. "This station stands at the grave of a star and the birthplace of a new understanding. We learned that strength and compassion are not opposites, that warriors can be kind, that violence, used justly, protects peace. He gestured to the black hole visible through the station's viewports. The Rixen wanted to consume the galaxy. Captain Taewon and his crew stopped them. At the cost of everything they were and everything they could have been. But their legacy lives on, in every ship built with Bo-Ra's principles, every patient saved with Yuna's techniques, every soldier trained in Sang-Woo's tradition. They were Deathworlders, Kelthan said, and we are all better for having known them. In deep space, Coalition sensors detected an anomaly, a signal from beyond the galactic rim, powerful and strange. Not Rixen. Something else. Something potentially worse. The Coalition Council convened an emergency session. Scientists presented their data. Military advisors outlined potential threats. Everyone remembered the Rixen, and how close the galaxy had come to extinction. Finally, the council chairwoman turned to Dong Hyun. Ambassador, if this becomes a crisis, will humanity help us again? Dong Hyun smiled. On Earth, a new generation of officers was graduating from the academy. Among them was Tae-jun, wearing his uncle's medals. The young man had scored top marks in tactics, engineering, and xenorelations. He'd volunteered for deep space patrol duty. We will, Dong Hyun said. Not because we're warriors. Not because we love fighting. But because we believe that protecting the innocent is worth any price. That's what it means to be human. That's what it means to be a Deathworlder. When asked if the new generation was afraid of following their predecessors into danger, Tae-jun had replied with words that became famous across the galaxy. On Earth, we have a saying, he'd told the reporter. Fate whispers to the warrior, you cannot withstand the storm. And the warrior whispers back, I am the storm. The galaxy had learned an important lesson. When aliens begged for aid, humans would answer, not with hesitation or calculation, but with immediate, unstoppable valor. Because that's what Deathworlders did. They stood between the darkness and the light, and they held the line no matter the cost. And the galaxy was safer for it.